What's up, guys? Rodney here with your forecast for episode 6 of Loki. We got a whole lot of things to talk about, and I'm really excited to get to our last two panels here because I've got a really big prediction that I'm staking my after credits life on. Don't really know what that means. Maybe you can tell me in the comments. Should I shut down my channel if I get this wrong? It's probably not going to happen. Actually, it's not going to happen. What should I do if I get this wrong? I am that certain in what's coming here that you need to stick around so you know if I'm right or not. Tell me in the comments what I should do if I get it wrong, and maybe I'll do it. Moving on. I think at the beginning of this episode, given where we left off, we're gonna get some TVA turnover. I'm 75% sure here, mainly because I don't know exactly what kind of turnover. I don't think the TVA is going to be destroyed, which is why I say it's not done. But I do think that obviously Mobius has to go back and confront Ravonna. Ravonna's looking for the same answers, presumably, that Mobius is. And it'll be interesting to see how that changes, how the TVA changes. I don't think they're going away, but I do think that there has to be a change of leadership, so to speak, and what that looks like and who survives the fallout is going to be really crazy. Getting down here to my Mobius prediction here in a second, I think that's going to factor a lot into it as to who he really is and where he comes from and what the city is outside of the window. Is that Chronopolis? Is that just a large version? The TVA is that large and needs that many people? Who knows? But I do think while all of this is happening at the TVA, back on our planet here, our end of time void, the Lokis are going to unite. Not necessarily counting Sylvie and Loki. Whatever they're doing is separate and apart, but I think something else is going to be going on. These other Lokis are going to unite somehow. I don't think they're just going to sit outside there twiddling their thumbs. I think we're going to see more Alligator Loki, Boastful Loki, Kid Loki. And if you look at IMDb, Richard Grant is slated for a third episode of the series. He was only in episode 4 and 5. So if that's to be believed, he should pop up in this next episode. Unless we already believe the rumors of a season 2, and his third episode is going to be in season 2, and somehow just somebody happens to know that. Don't think that's the case, but stranger things have happened, and we were all duped by Paul Bettany's Vision comments and a cameo, and so I am throwing out all possibilities because I don't want to get my hopes up, and I want us to remember that sometimes the things we hear on the internet aren't always true. Isn't that special? Moving on. All of the Lokis are going to unite. They're going to do something. Something's going to happen outside in the void or someplace else that they're going to have to come together somehow. I think we're going to see that because those were such really great characters, and it would be a shame, and it would kind of throw the story off a little bit if we saw all those Lokis and all this stuff happen, and then we jump into the void, and that episode would seem a little more standalone and a little odd. I can't say they won't do that because episode 3 seemed a little odd and out of place. But episode 5 seemed to kind of flow and up the stakes, and it would be a shame if we didn't see those guys again. Having said that, our TVA turnover here is going to include Mobius's glorious moment. Now, this has a double meaning here, and I'm 80% sure of what that means. Whether Mobius is responsible for burning down the TVA, maybe he gets back and he finds out something else about himself from a different version of Ravonna here, who we know is a little more willing to accept the truth and on a little bit of a vendetta, even if it's not for the right reasons. So Ravonna maybe tells Mobius something he didn't know before. Maybe Mobius is a variant, but now he's a clone. I thought that might be a thing before, that Mobius, since Mobius means, a time travel loop, basically, that maybe Mobius was a clone. He was a variant, but he was somehow reliving moments. Not necessarily mind wiped, but something like that. There were a lot of teases to that in episode 2 and then in episode 4. And so I wonder if we're going to get some of that to find out what Mobius's purpose in the TVA was, and then to see his glorious purpose of being able to have free will and do these things to overthrow the TVA. It's going to be interesting to see that. I have put this up again because they've been teasing it all series long. I was 50% last episode because I knew it had to happen last episode or this episode. Now I'm 100% certain. We've been toying with the red line and going towards the red line the entire series. We have to see what happens when we go over the red line. Maybe that's our signal that the multiverse has begun and we're going to see an empty TVA courtesy of Mobius. with the screens approaching Redline and then nobody there to stop it. That'd be a really cool shot. Maybe that happens, but we've got to see what happens when things redline. I think that image is going to be our acknowledgement, the MCU saying, now it's begun, that there's a multiverse. Just being able to show you that in an interesting way. Our time rules are still going to apply here, but I think, here it is. All the things. So the last 3 panels of my last prediction video had time loops, cameos, and a Sylvie send-off. I am 100% certain these things are going to happen. Obviously, I'm not as certain as I am about these things, but we got to get some time loops. We got to get some jumps. We got to get some different backstories, some explanations. I think things are really going to get flipped on their head. And all of the time rules that we've learned thus far, the multiverse things we've gotten comfortable with, we're really going to get some more explanation, and we're going to get this twistiness that we've been looking for. There's too many ways you could go with this without kind of giving us something that just flips all this on its head. I think Marvel and the MCU in general is notorious for their cameos. Richard E. Grant is a great character. I wouldn't necessarily call him a huge cameo by modern cultural standards, especially for the MCU. So I'm thinking maybe there might be somebody else there in the form of a variant version of somebody else, which would be really awesome that we've seen in the MCU already. Maybe a character from the What If series in real life that we're going to get a transition. That'd be kind of cool too. But I do think we get our Sylvie send-off. Now, what that looks like, whether she dies, whether she travels back in time to get to live out her life the way she should have, whether that means she gets to overthrow the TVA, I don't know. But I think she gets some kind of appropriate closure to her story in episode 6. Having said that, trying to get to our last 2 very quickly. The closure that she needs. We're on our way to some castle beyond Alioth, beyond the end of time. And a lot of people have said, oh, maybe it's Loki, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And a lot of people have said it's Kang. Kang the Conqueror is coming in the 3rd Ant-Man and the Wasp movie. And we've already gotten a lot of teases in the form of the casting and everything else that we know Kang is coming. A lot of the Easter eggs we've seen in this series have a lot of Kang references to them. And so they're definitely setting up for that because he's a big bad guy in the MCU. A lot of people think he is the man behind the curtain. I'm agreeing with you to a point, because the part that I'm willing to stake my reputation on here is, that's a better way of putting that. I should have said stake my reputation rather than my after credits life. Either way, tell me what you think I should do if I don't get this right. I'm 100% certain that the Kang we're going to see is actually a character named Immortus. Now, Immortus does not live in Chronopolis like Kang does. Kang lives in Chronopolis. A lot of people think the TVA is Chronopolis. It very well may be. But Immortus does not live in Chronopolis. He lives in a place called Limbo, which is a place after time. And he lives in Castle Limbo. Now, this graphic right here shows what Castle Limbo looks like in the comics. Chronopolis looks totally different than this. It has some castle-esque features to it, but not the way that Castle Limbo does. I think it would be a really cool way to introduce Kang by introducing us to Immortus, because Immortus is also a variant of Kang, and Immortus is actually tasked by the Timekeepers in the comics to protect a certain span of time. So if the Timekeepers are supposed to take care of pruning branches on the sacred timeline, maybe the Timekeepers put Kang in charge, or Immortus in charge, as a guardian over that timeline. So a manager over the managers, so to speak. Immortus is designated with protecting the span of time that we pretty much know as humans, from cavemen and dinosaurs and things like that, all the way to Kang's time period, which is 3000, 4000 AD. That time span is where Kang is in charge. And so we see different versions of him throughout the MCU. We're going to, I think. But it would be a really cool way, if we're going to see these versions later, if we get Immortus here. They don't have to use the guy that they cast for the big role. They can use somebody else. And then we get a lot of multiverse, time loop kind of things here to play with moving forward in the MCU. We get to see how this guy became this guy and vice versa. And I think it fits a lot of the stuff we've already seen. Not to mention the castle looks a lot more like and fits more in line with the things that are in the comics than it does with something like Chronopolis and getting Kang right off the bat. So Tell us what you guys think. There's a whole lot here that's going on. I'm excited to see how they wrap it up. Episode 5 really kind of twisted things and opened up the universe to a lot more possibilities. And so I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with this. What do you guys think they're going to do? What do you guys think is going to happen? And what should I do if I get my prediction wrong? As always, like and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so when we drop new content, you'll be the first to know about it. Check out our Easter egg video with a link at the end of this video and at the bottom in the comments. And as always, share this sucker all across the multiverse. We'll see you later.